Hi, I'm Rabbi Saunders and this is my video blog. Why am I wearing a ski face mask? Well, in this week's Sedra, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, when he came down from the mountain after being with God for so long, his whole face was shining bright and the Jews couldn't cope. So Moses had to put a mask on, so therefore his beauty and his radiance wouldn't dazzle the Jews. And when he went to speak to God, he would take it off. The rest of the Sedra talks about the sin of the golden calf. Question: how could the Jews make a golden calf? How could Aaron, brother of Moses, make a golden calf? We are commanded to give up our lives rather than serve idols. Thousands of Jews over the years have given up their lives. How could he do it? How could God forgive him and allow him to serve in the temple for 40 years? What is really going on over here? So to be very brief, because I'm sure you all want to have an explanation, our rabbis tell us that the Jews knew that God was in charge. But they knew also that Moses was the one that God chose to do all the miracles through. He lifted up a stick to do the miracles in Egypt. He was the one that spoke to Pharaoh to get them to leave. He was the one that made the miracles with hitting the rock for the water, splitting of the Reed Sea, and he's the one who lifted his hands in the air when they fought Amalek. So the Jews thought that although God is there, they needed an intermediary, somebody in the middle between God and them, in the same way as Moses was. And they thought that Moses was dead, and therefore they needed an intermediary. That's why it says in the verse, "These are your gods who took you out of Egypt." If you just made a golden calf, how can you say it took you out of Egypt? That was from Moses a few weeks earlier. So our rabbis tell us that this was their sin. That of course we don't need any intermediaries. We can be served by God alone and we can directly serve Him. But I do want to take one lesson away from this week's Sedra. At the beginning of the Sedra, we learn about the spices that made up the frankincense. There were 11 spices that made up the composition of the frankincense. The idea was that the frankincense was offered every day on the altar, sweet-smelling aroma, to show that we want to have our work pleasing and sweet-smelling towards God. However, there was one of the 10 spices that had a very bad smell. And the rabbis asked, why is there a bad-smelling spice in the frankincense? And the answer is because it doesn't matter. There could be sweet-smelling Jews and Jews who are not sweet-smelling. It doesn't matter. We are all one. We should all come together to serve God. And even sinners and even people who are not as religious as other people, they should all be included in our service of God.